before millions screamed Afrobeats lyrics in stadiums, before the Grammys, the TikTok challenges, and the late-night TV debuts, there was a sound nobody believed in. A sound born in chaos, raised in struggle, and carried by kids who had nothing but borrowed microphones and impossible dreams. This is the story of how a genre the world once ignored, even mocked, fought its way from the streets of Lagos to the center of global culture. A rise no one predicted, a takeover no one could stop. This is the untold story of Afrobeats. Lagos, Nigeria, late 1990s. Picture a city where the electricity cuts out every few hours, where generators roar louder than the music playing in cramped studios, where the traffic doesn't move for hours and the heat clings to your skin like a second layer. This was the world where Afrobeats was born, not in some gleaming recording studio, but in bedrooms with foam on the walls, in street corners where kids freestyled over beats played from crackling speakers. Nigeria in the 90s and early 2000s wasn't just struggling, it was suffocating. Military dictatorships had strangled the economy. Corruption was rampant. Young people had few options: leave the country or find a way to dream inside the chaos. For many, music became that dream. Not because it was glamorous, but because it was the only escape that felt possible. But here's what most people don't understand. Nigerian artists weren't just fighting poverty. They were fighting invisibility. The global music industry had already decided what African music should sound like: world music, tribal drums, exotic sounds for Western ears seeking authenticity. Anything modern, anything urban, anything that sounded like it belonged on the same stage as hip-hop or pop, ignored, dismissed as imitation, too local, too Nigerian, not marketable. Radio stations in London, New York, Paris, they wouldn't touch it. Major labels wouldn't sign it. MTV wouldn't play it. Even African immigrants in the diaspora sometimes felt embarrassed by it, choosing instead to embrace American R&B or UK garage. The message was clear: Afrobeats was never supposed to leave Nigeria. The world never planned to let it in. Young artists faced rejection after rejection. Visas denied for international shows. Shows canceled because promoters didn't believe Africans would show up. Airport security treating them like nobodies. One artist recalls sleeping in a London studio lobby because he couldn't afford a hotel, waiting for a meeting with a label executive who never showed up. This wasn't just about music. This was about dignity, about being told your sound, your story, your culture wasn't good enough for the world stage. But the fire was already lit, and fires don't ask for permission to burn. To understand Afrobeats, you have to go back to Fela Kuti. Fela wasn't just a musician, he was a revolutionary. In the 1970s, while military governments tried to silence dissent, Fela created Afrobeat, a fusion of jazz, funk, highlife, and traditional Yoruba rhythms. His music was political, defiant, unapologetic. He didn't just play rhythms, he weaponized them. The government raided his compound, arrested him, beat him. But the music survived. Fela planted a seed, the idea that African sound could be modern, rebellious, and powerful. Then came highlife. Then came Fuji. Then came Juju, genres that shaped Nigeria's sonic DNA, percussion-heavy, polyrhythmic, groove first. These weren't museum pieces. They were alive in weddings, in street parties, in the fabric of daily life. But something else was happening. Nigerian kids were hearing American hip-hop and R&B on bootleg cassettes. They were absorbing Jamaican dancehall. The diaspora was bringing back influences from London, New York, Atlanta, and in cramped studios across Lagos, producers started blending it all together. Don Jazzy, SARS, ID Cabasa, Fields, young producers with cheap equipment and limitless ambition. They took the groove of highlife, the punch of hip-hop, the melody of R&B, and the spirit of Fela, and they created something the world had never heard before. By the mid-2000s, the sound had a name: Afrobeats. Not Afrobeat, Fela's genre, but Afrobeats, plural, because it was everything at once. A fusion, a movement. The first wave of pioneers emerged. D'Banj with his harmonica and swagger, P-Square with choreography that rivaled any American boy band. Two-Face Idibia with melodies that could make a whole country sing. Wande Cole with a voice smoother than silk. Moit's Records became the epicenter, a collective of young rebels who believed they could conquer the world from a studio in Lagos. They weren't wrong, but they were early. D'Banj tried to break into America. He linked up with Kanye West, signed to God Music, performed at major festivals. For a moment it seemed like the door was opening, but it slammed shut fast. The American industry didn't know what to do with him. Radio wouldn't play the records. The momentum fizzled. It was devastating. But it was also a lesson. The West wouldn't hand Afrobeats a seat at the table. Afrobeats would have to build its own table. And that's exactly what happened. YouTube changed everything. Suddenly, Nigerian artists didn't need MTV. They didn't need American radio. They could upload a video and reach millions. Channels like Sound City TV, MTV Base Africa, and Trace started amplifying the sound. BET began paying attention. Channel O became essential. But the real revolution wasn't happening in boardrooms. It was happening in bedrooms, in internet cafes, in WhatsApp groups where the diaspora shared new songs with cousins back home. The fire was spreading. By the early 2010s, a new generation was ready, hungrier, bolder, more global. And they were about to explode. 2014, Lagos. A young artist named Wizkid releases a song called Ojuelegba. It's raw. It's honest. It's about his neighborhood, the hustle, the poverty, the dreams. The song becomes a street anthem. Kids in Lagos blast it from phone speakers. It spreads through Nigeria like wildfire. Then something unexpected happens. Drake hears it. So does Skepta. They jump on the remix. Suddenly, Ojuelegba isn't just a Lagos song, it's a global moment. Wizkid, the kid from the streets, is collaborating with one of the biggest artists in the world. But this wasn't luck. This was the result of years of grinding, years of building a fan base, years of perfecting a sound that felt both deeply Nigerian and universally infectious. Wizkid wasn't alone. Davido burst onto the scene in 2011 with Dami Duro, a song so energetic, so unapologetically Nigerian that it became impossible to ignore. Davido came from wealth, but he worked like he had nothing to lose. He flooded the airwaves. He collaborated relentlessly. He turned himself into a movement. Then there was Burna Boy, the one they called the African Giant. His music was different, darker, grittier, more political. He fused reggae, dancehall, Afrobeats, and something entirely his own. He didn't chase validation. He demanded respect. And slowly, undeniably, the world gave it to him. Olamide owned the streets. Every year, multiple hits, indigenous rap mixed with street pop. He was the engine of Lagos nightlife, the sound of hustle, the voice of the everyday Nigerian. Tiwa Savage was breaking every ceiling. She proved Afrobeats wasn't just a boys' club. Her voice, her presence, her artistry, global. And in the background, producers were evolving. SARS, legendary beats, Shizzy, Young John. The beats became more intricate, more addictive. Every song felt like it was designed to make your body move. Then came the digital revolution. Nigeria's internet penetration exploded. Data became cheaper. Smartphones became accessible. Suddenly, every teenager in Lagos had access to YouTube, SoundCloud, Apple Music. They weren't just consumers. They were curators, sharing songs across WhatsApp, Instagram, Twitter. TikTok became a weapon. Dance challenges went viral overnight. A song could blow up in Lagos on Monday and be trending in London by Wednesday. The gatekeepers were gone. The people decided what was a hit. But the moment everything truly changed, 2016, One Dance. Drake released One Dance featuring Wizkid and Kyla. The song sampled Afrobeats rhythms. It had that infectious, laid-back groove, and it became the most streamed song on Spotify at the time. #1 in 15 countries. Suddenly, Afrobeats wasn't world music. It was pop music. Playlists on Spotify and Apple Music started featuring Afrobeats tracks. Major artists started seeking collaborations. Beyoncé, Ed Sheeran, Chris Brown, Major Lazer. They all wanted a piece of the sound. The floodgates opened. Afrobeats wasn't just a genre anymore. It was a movement, a lifestyle, a cultural force that could no longer be contained. 2021, the Grammys. Burna Boy performs Ye on one of music's biggest stages. It's not just a performance, it's a statement. A kid from Port Harcourt, Nigeria, commanding the world's attention, representing a sound that was born in chaos and raised in defiance. He doesn't bow, he doesn't apologize for his sound, he owns it. The next year, he wins the Grammy for Best Global Music Album. Then Wizkid wins. The message is clear. Afrobeats has arrived, and it's here to stay. Thames breaks through with a voice that feels like silk and soul. Her collaboration with Wizkid on Essence becomes the song of the summer, not just in Africa, but globally. She gets sampled by Drake. She performs at the Oscars. A girl from Lagos is now a global icon. Rema releases Calm Down. It becomes one of the biggest global hits of 2023. Selena Gomez jumps on the remix. The song dominates charts in India, France, the Middle East, everywhere. Coachella, Glastonbury, Rolling Loud, Afro Nation, major festivals around the world now have dedicated Afrobeat stages. Burna Boy sells out Madison Square Garden. Wizkid sells out the O2 Arena 3 nights in a row. Davido headlines massive venues across America. But it's not just about the music anymore. Afrobeats has become culture. Fashion brands are collaborating with Nigerian artists. Slang from Lagos, no wahala, e choke, shey you dey wine me, is being used in London, New York, Toronto. Dance moves from Lagos clubs are being recreated on TikTok by millions. Beyoncé's The Lion King. The Gift album is a love letter to Afrobeats. Nigerian producers and artists are all over it. Suddenly, the world isn't just listening to Afrobeats, it's celebrating it, studying it, respecting it. Even the fusion genres are evolving. Amapiano from South Africa blends with Afrobeats. Afro swing emerges in the UK. The sound is morphing, growing, influencing everything it touches. What began as survival, kids making music on borrowed equipment, dreaming of escaping poverty, became a universal language, a sound that made the world move. A sound that reminded everyone that joy, rhythm, and resilience were born in Africa. Afrobeats didn't beg for a seat at the table. It built its own table. And now, the whole world is dancing around it. So, where does Afrobeats go from here? The underground is still bubbling. New producers are experimenting with AI-generated beats, mixing Afrobeats with electronic music, trap, drill. Young artists in Ghana, Kenya, Tanzania, South Africa are adding their own flavors. The sound is expanding. Afrobeats is in movies now, in video games, in commercials. It's the soundtrack to a generation. And it's only getting bigger. Some predict that within the next decade, Afrobeats will be one of the top 3 genres in the world. Not world music, not a trend, but a pillar of global pop culture. Because here's the thing about Afrobeats, it was never just about Nigeria. It was about what's possible when you refuse to let the world define you, when you turn struggle into sound. When you take everything they said you couldn't do, and you do it anyway. Afrobeats didn't just take over the world. It reminded the world that rhythm, joy, and hope were born in Africa. And that sound? It's never going away.